It is after 6 p.m., which means welcome to Theorycraft, a live podcast where game developers and players engage in conversation. That is, of course, after a bunch of interpersonal bants. So, Candace, what is going on with you down in presumably sunny California this week?
I went to Vegas this weekend. It was so
How is
exhausting.
Vegas?
Okay, so the thing is, I hyped myself down for this trip because I really didn't want to go, but we had
Hate
booked it
myself
in,
down.
yeah, before even May or something like that. My friend was like, my 40th birthday was during the pandemic, and we're gonna do it over big in Vegas. And like the fucking vaccine was coming out, numbers were going down. Oh, sorry, it was around May or so, and we're like, yeah, by September this will be fine.
Yeah.
So we booked our plane
Yeah.
tickets. I mean, this lady booked out like all of the cabanas at the plunge pool at the Vidara so that we wouldn't have to share it. Like we
Holy
went big.
moly.
And by we I mean I did not pay for that. It was her birthday. And I was like, are we going splits on this? And she's like, nah. And anyways, and then we booked like a bunch of we had a not like nervous, but one of the people that was on that also committed to the trip and had bought the plane tickets and whatever. She has to go to Canada next weekend for some family stuff,
Mhm.
and she's like turbo terrified she's gonna get COVID because if she tests positive, she can't fly into Canada, right? So we were being
Yep.
like super super careful. Again, like we rented out all of the plunge pools so we didn't have to share the space. We rented out the frickin' the patio at the lounge and stuff like that. Like we're like doing our best, I guess. But the last night we definitely we ate indoors, but at least she was gone by then. So yeah, we had a really good time though. Like I was very surprised at how relaxing it was to just like get away and sit by a pool all day on Saturday and just drink
Mhm.
cocktails. So it was. I hyped myself down because I was like, man, I don't want to go on this trip, like Delta variant, and like all this stuff. I can't believe I committed to it. And I ended up having a fucking great time.
That's killer. Getting out of town and doing something remotely normal sounds like a treat right now. Not much of a Vegas fan, and it sounds like it didn't get as ragey as it kind of normally would. But do you know what happened to your friend? Did they manage to get across into Canada?
She gets her test tomorrow. So
I'm sure y'all are fine.
yeah, no symptoms.
Chris, how you been faring?
Good. I mean, it was funny because I was just thinking about last week when we were all talking about stuff. It was so hilarious. We're just all talking about our aches and pains and our massages and our muscles and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Candace is talking about this 40-year-old birthday party. I'm like, holy crap. We're just like, pack it up. We're old.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I've been thinking about it lately, but I was somewhat comforted reading like some random Reddit thread where I shouldn't say I was somewhat comforted. There are people that live in actual constant day-to-day pain. Like it's just part of their existence.
Oh,
So if I walk around feeling like I've got a bit of a fucking backache because I didn't stretch or something, I just have to get over it. But yeah, do you remember just feeling casually achy when you were younger? It's just like the youth is wasted on the young. Yeah, like I don't.
not really. I have really bad allergies, and so grass. It's in SoCal, it's fine, but in NorCal, I don't know what it is. But whenever I do PE, where you have to do like laps and stuff like that, I would get really bad like kind of asthma as a kid. But that's about it.
Just hanging out, presumably not being hurt this week then?
Yeah, I'm kind of like I kind of recovered pretty quickly, so I'm doing good. I went to the gym today and back on kind of the keto life, and so yeah, working on some project that I want to share and announce soon. Will be fun, but
Oh, cool.
still a little too soon. So
Are we going to break the scoop? Or where's the first line
Oh,
of,
the
of
project?
announcement? Yeah.
oh, I don't know. We'll
We're
see.
not gonna get a TC exclusive.
Maybe we'll see. Not for like a couple weeks still, probably though.
Yep. I didn't ask, but either of you two game in the last week? Doesn't sound like you really had time for it, Candace, but
Oh, I played a super secret beta of a game. It was fun.
Oh wow.
wow, well, that leaves us
Like
really
Riot
unfulfilled.
beta or what kind of beta?
I think it's like a private only invite something that I got through a friend. So
Okay. A developer friend?
yeah, they're like they're indie, so they're not reaching for a lot of. They want like the feedback from industry people and whatnot. That ever happened to y'all?
No, no one wants my feedback.
I ask for your feedback like every week. So
That's true. That's true. But it's on like
There's like a
font choices and shit, not on like game design, right?
there's like
all
a
sorts of
sound
other
joke to
stuff.
be made about feedback, but I'm not going to make it here. I'm going to
Pretty
take the high
good.
road.
It's true. Only Bungie wanted my feedback. It's the only place it ever fit. Okay, well that's exciting. So we have some like new announcements coming from. Well, there's just a lot of nice secret news out there.
A lot of secrets going on.
A lot of secret news. Yeah.
Games that I've been playing. Well, I beat that Alien Spire Teams game, and I was gonna want to. I was downloading that. God, what's it called? Kina
Bridge of Spirits.
Bridge of Spirits. Yeah, because apparently it's. Someone said it's just like a love letter to Zelda, and so it's like, oh, hello, I'll play that.
I saw Jaffe called it a dog of a game. I don't know what that means, and I
He
haven't watched
did,
the
but
video.
it was
so like,
so I don't want to spoil the video, but
Okay.
it's basically clickbait. So
okay.
he basically says a dog game. Everyone loves dogs. Like, yeah, it's that sort of thing. Like,
That's like if I had
okay.
taken it literally, that's what I thought. I was like, you mean like it's the man's
It's
best
Jaffe
friend
AF
equivalence
is
of a?
basically what that video is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Our goal
Fun.
should be to get Jaffe on our podcast.
Holy shit, that would be god tier. I would love to.
Yeah. I'll try. I'll flirt with him on Twitter or something.
Great. Yeah, you two have the pull there. Well, I didn't do a lot of gaming last week. I've got my Halloween costume figured out with a friend.
Oh shit! What?
Yeah, so that's exciting. I mean, I don't want to spoil it for some. No, it's not a hazmat suit. No, we're gonna go as Pam and Tommy Lee, and so that's pretty fun.
Who's gonna be Pam?
my friend. She'll. Yeah. No. And so I'm thinking like the guy's mostly known for having his shirt off, and so on more related diet news and stuff, I'm like, should I like try to cut just like a couple pounds for Halloween and like look really good and just the last 3 days. I mean, if you're ready for like the most privileged thing ever said on this show, like I forgot how much it sucks to feel hungry. It's not enjoyable, really. I'd much prefer to just like eat extra food and work out all the time. But
Eat your sourdough.
yeah, exactly. So, but we'll see how all that goes. Yeah,
Well,
I watched.
I'm gonna have to see pictures of this.
Oh yeah, no, there'll be pictures. I'm really hyped for it. So, yeah, like friends are having an actual Halloween party. So, I celebrate like every 6th Halloween. I'm not a big Halloween guy, so hopefully this.
I like Halloween. It's just a lot of prep work. I'm like a last minute type person, and I'm like, oh, fuck, what am I gonna be? Do I just like bring out my other costume from the
same.
archives or whatever? It's like, oh, that's lame. Forget it. I'm not doing anything. Are you gonna do anything for Halloween, Candace?
No, fuck no, not usually. Nope.
Okay.
Yeah.
Worth a shot. I'm gonna have a little bit of a LAN party this weekend, a remote one, which should be exciting. So it won't be LAN at all. It'll just be like continued co-op with my usual crew of friends, but we'll go through some faves. I'm gonna check out Dying Light, which I haven't. Apparently that's got some cool co-op you can do. I know very little about it. It's like zombie parkour, so seems like a blast. We might play some Ascent. We might check out Valheim again, but for like a LAN party in a short weekend, it's like, I don't know. I don't know if I can put fresh eyes on Valheim. It's been so little time, so we'll see.
Oh man, if we're covering the news, can we fucking talk about that?
Hearth
Yeah,
and
let's
Home.
just go right into that. Good segue.
Yes.
Have you played Hearth and Home, Candace, or?
I read this article today, and it was like AAA has ruined our expectations of what a content update is, and it's very, very true. Like, you
100%.
can't expect a team of 5 people who shipped a game, and God knows how long it took them to make the game in the first place, to in 6 months give you like a significant amount of content. And here's why. Like, well, the thing the article didn't cover is like, even if you were to say, hey, duders, you made $9 million or whatever millions of dollars that they made. You had 6 months to provide us like a content update. Did you know that like onboarding someone onto your project and your tools or like whatever, and like finding someone perfect to hire, especially when you're picky, because you have a very like
Into
small,
such a
tightly
small
knit
culture?
team,
Yeah, yeah.
could take 3 months just to get the hire. And like then even if you were to like snag somebody perfect, they have to quit their job. They're going to take a month or two off. It's been a hard couple of years. Like expecting like one person to join in 4 months is pretty atypical. So you're not going to like double the size of the team suddenly, and it's really bad for your team to double the size of your team anyway. So like taking that argument of like you guys have all this money, you should be able to churn that into more video game. It's like I completely agree with that notion. And I'm kind of like offended on their behalf. And a couple of other arguments are like, well, what you gave us was just like some assets. And again, like, okay, you shipped an enormously popular game that was like an overnight success. It like blew the fuck up. Would you immediately go back to work? Like, or would you like take a
Yeah.
month or two off with your literal $9 million and be like, you know what? Congratulations, everybody. It's been a hard fucking pandemic and we worked through the whole pandemic, but why don't we take some time off to congratulate ourselves? Like, I just
Yeah.
feel for the developers so much with all of this hate that's been spread for the whatever. But it was like there's like a third argument about like, okay,
Was it
like you made a
because
bunch
they
of
put?
money.
I saw some kind of like victim blamey sort of. They shouldn't have put out a roadmap with a couple of goals within 2021 if they wanted to. Like
Well, I
you,
think aren't they pretty like honoring that roadmap though? I think the Hearth and Home is like the first thing on there that they originally shot out even before they blew up, I thought.
yeah. I don't know. The article made some good points. I also think that like this wouldn't have been a like. I wonder if this would have happened to Valheim if they hadn't released it early access and it was just out. Because honestly, in my mind, for the amount of value I got out of it, it was like ready to just go. And so if it wasn't early access, so there was this implicit contract that my $20 is getting me more stuff in the future. I wonder if people might have just been like, oh, cool, bonus content for Valheim. Didn't expect that. And like, kind of there it is. I thought I was done with that. I guess I'm not. Maybe not going into EA would have saved them that. Not that they care. Like, I just don't think they should really be too bothered by it. I do think the expectation that any game I pick should be able to occupy me for like 10,000 hours is a bit odd. That's a total straw man. I'm inventing a guy there, but you know what I mean. The content hunger for what could ultimately just be a finite game is just a bit weird.
Yeah. And so given all of what I just said, like yeah, we're putting too much expectation on like a small development team to give you a lot, which sucks. I mean, it's a good thing though. It means your players want more of your game, so you can't be
Yeah.
like too mad about it. You can also cry into your literal piles of fucking money at this point. I do have to say, like, I think that the news would not have been so bad. I could feel like the receiving of the update would not have been so bad if it was also not coupled with like rather significant power nerfs to the player.
Yeah, the food rebalancing and such that they did.
Yeah, like typically like you eat food and it increases both your health pool so you can take more hits and your stamina bar so you can give more hits. And
Yeah.
that feels amazing. And they're like, no, 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 we're gonna make food more interesting. And but by more interesting it means like I mean you're still capped on how much food you can eat and like the different kinds of food you can eat.
Yeah.
But now you have to work harder for essentially like the same power gains. And like since it's a survival game, you're quite literally chewing through the food like quite often. And so it just ended up like throttling players and making them very upset. And so I feel like if it had just been like, pay us the money, whatever monies, and we'll give you some new assets, at least you're like I feel like that would have been like, this isn't a lot. But at least people aren't like angry. But I think that people are very angry right now. Like one, because they've been locked in their house for a goddamn year and a half or more, and two, like the world is in a state of unrest and uncertainty. Just not a good time to try to like please a crowd, I think. But yeah, I feel like if did the roadmap also include what they actually wanted to do for Mistlands, or did it just say like when we're planning to do stuff? Because I feel like that
I
would
mean,
have been a great compliment to it. If it was like, hey, so this is like a DLC pack of extra items that you can get if you want to like do a second playthrough, like spend that angle because like maybe a reason to do another playthrough to collect all these things that you couldn't collect before, and then like we put the obliterator in the game and like you're welcome. And then say like we're gonna take a vacation because we worked really hard on this fucking game, but then we're gonna like work on the Mistlands and here's everything we want to do for Mistlands. Probably been like better received maybe, but yeah, I just reading some of these reviews just breaks my heart because it's like these people are doing their best, man.
I mean, honestly, they probably just don't really care that much. Like, they were highly successful. The game is beloved. It's everyone's always going to
Where are
want
they
more.
based again too? They're like a Scandinavian developer, aren't they? Yeah, so they already have insane quality of life, right? They're already like a top Maslow's pyramid living in like a socially democratic nation that's got everything figured out. So I'm sure they're completely unbothered.
I'd love to bring the director on the show one time, but it's just like they're like an opposite land. It's like 4 a.m. There when we do the show or whatever. So maybe sometime.
You know what it is? Like a very valuable lesson in though. Like they launched early access, but then they launched the game, and there was like time that passed between those two things. And they launched early access in a really good state, I think. Like there were very minor bugs, like not a lot of like game breakers, and they were fixing them like mad, right? So I'm pretty sure like for the first 3 or 4 weeks that the game was out, they would come into work and they would just fix things like mad and push out updates. Like not getting to enjoy the time off or whatever that I had mentioned before.
Yeah.
But what's really
they're
funny
all working.
in game development, it's not like you're just like working on your live patch or whatever. You're like always on to the next thing. So especially in
Right.
pre-release, there's going to be people like there's going to be some people dedicated, probably even if there's like 5 of them, to like, you guys, can you just triage live? And then whoever's left, like maybe like the one engineer or the one Unity master or whatever, like, can you finish up all the shit that we wanted to fix? Like probably bugs that are like rare or things that like maybe you didn't notice as a player that got fixed or something, like the stuff under the hood that like the stuff that you push from early release to like release is all like good quality of life stuff or like infrastructure stuff, or maybe sometimes it's like art assets that you didn't have time to get to, or like small systems or something like that increase like quality of life. But what that's funny is like feels like people don't know what the difference is between the pre-release game and then the release game. And so it's kind of like a scoping lesson, isn't it? Of like, you did 2 months worth of shit for release that you had deemed was really useful, but the players didn't notice, And so like maybe, and like I don't know, if it were my game, maybe I would have been like, hey, this game is like wildly successful. Let's go through our list of like burn down of all the stuff we wanted to do before live game happened, and just cut everything that's not completely necessary, So someone said they received $96 million in sales, but then you have to say, well, $96 million. I don't know. Is that how much it was? If it was they'd sold X many copies.
Anyways,
I'm not going to pretend to know the math because I didn't know. But then you have to say like, now take 30% of that away because Steam takes that, and then divide it by like
way more than they expected. And so probably, it makes some of the things they were planning to immediately retouch look a bit different, in light of all that. That's true. Sorry, Chris, you were saying?
Oh, I was just kind of saying, the publisher also, Coffee Stain.
Oh, yeah.
Takes, I imagine, some sort of cut. I have no idea.
Let's take another couple minutes just to finish off the news, then we'll try to get into Chris's chat today. There's a new Nintendo Direct tomorrow with 40 minutes of Switch game news, which might include the last Smash Fighter, which is pretty exciting.
Funny, the Smash Brothers like culture of just, it better be this or I'm done or whatever. I don't know. Everybody's just so excited. They all have their fave that they're trying to hope that's.
If you're a person that's still saying it better be this or I'm done, you're not done, and you will never be done.
Yeah.
By this point,
yeah.
You are in.
I mean, every dev hopes that their fans are that passionate, right?
They have had some oddball picks,
I'm excited.
But yeah, and the OLED Switch comes out next month. Well, I mean, we're all kind of Nintendo super fans here. I've been trying to design Nintendo-y sounds lately, and it's hard. But I accidentally made some like Super Mario World Yoshi type sound effect earlier today. It was exciting.
Is it really? Why is it hard? I mean, that's like
because it's very, very simple and refined. Like a lot of Nintendo sound design that's kind of gestural and musical and quirky. It's like everything is stripped away except for sort of like the character of the sound. And so I think it takes a lot of polish to get to making those sorts of sounds. They don't hide their sounds behind anything. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it well, but they're simple. They're simple and memorable. And to get things to their takes a lot of iteration, which is very Japanese sound design, honestly. Like, anecdote from a Final Fantasy sound design talk I saw at GDC a bunch of years ago. They were talking about how the guy did like 61 iterations of one UI sound before he decided on the one that he wanted. And it made it sound like he had them in the game, you know, and they really drill down on that stuff. So yes. I didn't get more Blizzard drama. I didn't get my Blizzard news today, but this week has really served up quite a bit so far.
Yeah, 1 week there'll be no Blizzard news.
I was so delighted by today, though. Like, I don't know what the news was, but the whole fruit bowl meme thing, just digging deep on the fruit bowl meme was.
I just picture Candace dying at that.
My favorite. So if you're not keen on the fruit bowl meme, it's so Blizzard has done its past on removing references to problematic content as they should, which is great. And they've also decided like, well, this is also a good opportunity to change some of the things that like kind of didn't age so well. So one of the things I was reading about was like twin consorts, because the story of them is like Lei Shin carved them out of stone, and then he brought them to life as like the only women Mogu or something, and then he married them or something. And it's like that's kind of objectification. So apparently they'd renamed them the Twin Empyreans, and so probably their blurb is going to change too. Sorry,
I'm in brain lit. What the hell is a consort, anyways?
So a consort is actually just the wife of, or the spouse, sorry, of royalty. So calling them twin consorts really just talks about like, really the only shade there is that they're polyamorous and kind of incestuous in that way. But if you've ever watched Sister Wives, you know that like sometimes the wives aren't, you know, diddling each other. So the incest thing is kind of like whatever. But yeah, it really is just kind of throwing a shade on polyamory, which is kind of weird. But the actual problematic part of it, and probably the reason that their name was changed, is because they want to retcon the lore, right? A man didn't create them and bring them to life to use them as his wife, like, you know, like they didn't have really choice of that or whatever. So probably they're, you know, sleeping queens or something like that, if I had to guess. I don't know. I'm not privy to the actual information.
Did they rename some of this? I mean, you were like the queen of like the hilarious achievement names.
So fortunately, I don't think any of mine were as risque. I think the most risque thing I put in the game, and we'll probably have to like censor this out because I don't want to get canceled. I put in the slimy croc ring that drops off the crocodile boss. I was very immature.
There's an achievement name that I was dying that you made. What was that one? Fuck. The engulf one? Engulfing
Slimy flames, croc ring even make into the game? I don't even remember. Anyway, but if you think about it, like it's right there on the nose. But you just killed a crocodile. Where did the ring come from? Probably a stomach. Probably you ate it from. Like, there's a lot of fantasy there for why it's slimy.
What are those twin dragons that you guys recorded the VO and then you re-recorded it because it was too?
Oh, I don't know. That feels kind of. Probably shouldn't talk about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Two what? The mind reels at the possibility.
So anyway, so Blizzard renamed like the Love Rocket, and so it's a chance to, you know, kind of rewrite some of your problematic past, which is like good on you if that's what you want to do. More power to you. I agree that some of that's problematic. But the thing that people are freaking out about is some of the art is also changing. There's like a picture of, it wasn't White Mane, but it's like somebody in power or something, and she's wearing a rather like V-cut dress that goes all the way to her belly button. So she has a lot of her cleavage showing.
Oh, the one from the portrait, yeah. It's like a portrait that was using to tile some vanilla, not an inn, maybe it was. I don't remember it, yeah.
And knowing like the way that an MMO works, it's probably plastered around the game in a couple places, right? You don't just reuse stuff all the time. And then they kind of gave her like a modesty corset, which is a little bit okay. Like, I guess you don't get to both be in power and show off your titties, but okay, so that's fine. And so like people are a little bit, I don't like that. But then the next one was like, it was a portrait of a human female woman in just her like WoW underwear. Wears her little black panties and bra, and she's laying down. She's having a time. I don't know what the context is or where that spawned in the world or whatever, but that was deemed problematic as well. But instead of giving her like modesty clothing, they just replaced her with a bowl of fruit. So it's just like And so the internet blew up with this bowl of fruit thing. Like, there's women that are like, it looks like they're unzipping their shirt to be like, oh, I'm gonna be improper right now, and then they just like photoshopped a bowl of fruit over their chest. One of my favorite one of them was like, "What? You're replacing this woman with a bowl of fruit? Why not just like Bobby Kotick from Taliesin and Evidal or whatever?" They're really funny. There's
That
also
was
just
hilarious. Yeah.
there's also like it was a screen cap from Monastery where it's the moment where Whitemane resurrects Mograine or whatever, and
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
like, "Rise, my champion," and he's like, "I'm by your side, my lady." And so you see the chat bubbles, and he's like freshly resurrected. He's got like the beam coming off of him, the blinding, holy light, and then she's there with her chapeau, like her hat, but she's not herself. She's a bowl of fruit with the hat, and it just with the chat bubble that says, "Arise, my champion."
I'm posting it in. The live chat.
But then
True.
my absolute like goat, like this is the best one, is it's just character select, and the gender is set to the sign for female, and instead of like a character there, it's just like an apple, and the options on the side are like pear, banana. So
I just posted.
I was losing my mind today. These are such clever memes. And not to throw shade, I agree with what Blizzard's doing. It's a great effort. It's just I think that some of those were like offensive, and so of course the internet's going to respond with quick-witted humor. So
Yeah, that one was
Yes.
puzzling. But we got some memes out of
This
it.
is why the internet exists. Yeah.
So much has happened. There's no way we're going to be able to cover it. And the wealth of content creators has pretty much hit all the beats. The chief legal officer stepping down, the EP of Overwatch 2 being gone, and of course the people turning to fruit, and the SEC is now investigating. That seems like really serious business to me. The most surprising thing out of that entire article was learning that Bobby Kotick is the ex-boyfriend of Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg. Like, when the fuck did that happen? I had no idea. Not that this is like a celebrity gossip podcast, but like, that shocked me. So I feel like we're probably pretty close to having discussion of this appear on Pivot, which is like the tech culture podcast that Chris and I listened to. And I'll take that as a win. Great. That one killed on my other podcast, but we're gonna get on. We're gonna get on to Chris.
I smiled. You just
Thanks,
couldn't
Chris. It's okay. Chris is going to share with us some stories today, or maybe just one of some of the things that he's worked on WoW. You didn't really give me a sneak preview of what it was going to be. I know a lot of folks have asked about War Mode, but it's your show now. So can you think of like any, I mean, with the whole preamble that Candace gave last time that, no one person is an island and everything is a group effort. We're not saying that you're like laying claim to I built X, unless you want to.
No, I think that was really smart. What Candace said is totally true. And it's really usually why no one really claims credit for anything. It's really hard to claim credit for anything just because there's so many people working on it. And I don't know what quite really. There's been, about 13 years. I have a number of things I guess I worked on. I was going to ask in chat if there's anything particular I should talk about. I could just kind of go around and maybe not go super deep on everything. But
I think you know what the greatest hits are, right? You have your kind of spell credentials list up on a portfolio that I saw at some point.
yeah, like haven't you ever interviewed for a job and you're like, I got these 3 things in my back pocket and I'm gonna fucking talk about them?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Leap of Faith, the Shadow rework, War Mode, the Incursions.
What was like?
The
I'll ask them.
Monk. I mean,
What's like
we've
the
been over
most
Monk,
interesting problem you had to solve, or like an unexpected fix to a problem? Surely with Monk you had like meaty designery things that you had to solve.
Well, Monk was challenging in a lot of different ways. One was like, what is a monk in Warcraft? And there wasn't like a lot of good examples. Like probably the closest example was kind of, and really what the directors wanted was, we want to do the monk and we're doing Miss Pandaria. I wanted to do a different class, which I won't say which class it is, but it wouldn't fit with the Miss Pandaria theme, and I was kind of bummed on that. But I was like, all right, monk, what the hell am I going to do for monk in terms of like the gameplay or fantasy and stuff, you know. And if you look at monk in like RPGs, it's like it's very kind of like it's monk, right? It's like, oh, they're like Buddhists, and they have prayer beads, and they all fist fight, stuff like that. And it just didn't feel Warcrafty. Like Warcraft, you have to like kind of put a spin on it, a little bit. Like you have to modernize it, and I don't know. The Warcraft aesthetic is kind of, so what I kind of thought about is, I love Street Fighter, and I think Street Fighter is a little more kind of has like some more edge to it. It's not monk per se, but it's like fist fighting, it's martial arts, and it has like a little kind of edge to it, with all of like Ryu's attacks and Guiles and all of that in Street Fighter. And so I infused the monk with a little bit of that. That's kind of why they have Rising Sun Kick and Fist of Fury, and even in Mortal Kombat, I kind of took Liu
The
Kang's
flying serpent kick. Yep.
Yeah, for flying serpent kick. And so I tried to make it like have a different spin on it there, and I also wanted to differentiate it from like Diablo's monk, because it's very. I think that's what everyone kind of on the team was like. Oh, just make it like Diablo's monk, and I'm just like, yeah. It's just like, let's try to do something different, right? And then the other thing was that the directors wanted is let's try to make. They wanted to have the brewmaster, right? God, it's like you have to have brewmaster and a monk, right? Like. And so the brewmaster eventually, I was thinking, well, is this going to be like the DPS or the healer or the tank? Because we knew we wanted it to be 3 specs. And eventually, right, just made the brewmaster the tank. And so obviously, the brewmaster in Warcraft has some abilities as Breath of Flame and Drunken Haze. And so of course I kind of started with those and tried to build around that. And I kind of wanted to do like an evasion tank for the brewmaster, just because elusive brawler was a passive in Warcraft that they just have extra dodge, and so that's reasonable to do for a tank. But the problem with dodge is just that it's so binary when you're like tanking a boss, and so there had to be. So I wanted something the spirit of dodging, but not actual dodge, and that's kind of what Stagger turned into, right? So I was pretty happy with that and the brewmaster. And the Windwalker was DPS is always kind of the easiest one to do, I thought. The hardest one was the Mistweaver. Like, what the hell is a healing monk, right? If they're gonna have a brewmaster, I was like, well, maybe just make that a motif on all of the specs, right? That they all drink brews, and maybe the healer, instead of a brew, it's like a tea, right? Like it's just more kind of Zen-like, right? And so that's kind of what I try to like pepper between the different specs. Is I wanted them all to have this sense of like consuming, brewing sort of thing. And so I gave the Mistweaver tea. And so I started with that. And then from there, I was like, okay, how the hell do they heal? Like, what is their healing style, right? What is the fantasy of the monk? And I just kept like looking at all the concept art for Miss Pandaria, and so much of it just had mists in it. Like if you look at the cinematic, how Pandaria is unveiled as the mists kind of separate, and shows the
Was the title of the expansion known at this point? I mean, literally, there's mists in the title as well.
That's a good question. I can't remember at the time.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, like, how much did you have to honor the legacy of the Pandaren neutral hero from Warcraft 3? I'm sure you drew a lot of inspiration from that as well. You were talking about Drunken Haze and Stagger and whatnot. Or not Stagger, Breath of Fire.
Yeah, they had elusive brawler was like the passive, yeah. And I think I even named that in there. Yeah, it's funny about like Drunken Haze because, obviously I named the spell Drunken Haze, but then some producer came back and said, hey, we can't name it Drunken Haze. And I was like, why not? It's like, well, because it doesn't pass the certification in Germany. And I was like, Germany? It's like, yeah, Germany like does not allow any kind of alcohol in the game, which is crazy to think about Germany. Germany is just like,
I think it's
etc.
it's a little more nuanced than that. You can have references to alcohol in your game. Alcohol just can't be like a benefit or like a good thing, I think.
Yeah,
And
it can't be
so
like a buff. Yeah.
and so yeah, if you look at like there's no references to like being drunk. Stagger is kind of like a reference, but yeah, brewing could mean anything. Brewing could mean tea, and like yeah, they went that angle for the
Yeah.
Mistweaver.
Yeah.
So it's just funny that like yeah, that you have to when you have a global game like that, you have to consider all the considerations. Like some countries don't like to show skeletons, some countries don't like to show red blood. You can't have red blood in some countries, and
Yeah. It turns green. That's funny with like, Unreal. Unreal has like a checkbox. It's like a tangent for like green blood. It's just like all you gotta do is do a checkbox. Yeah.
Oh, easy.
Sorry, what were you gonna say, Luca?
Well, I mean, adding a new class to the game, especially one that at that point had already been running for, like 7 years or so, is just like a monumental undertaking. There's not, I mean, the amount of design space left over is probably pretty small. Mist was pretty crammed with abilities, anyways. I guess I understand that you shaped the kits, and it sounds like you even decided some of the specs, but like, well, it must have just been like one of the highest priority things that was going on in the dev cycle at that point. So are there any collaborative moments between yourself and like other disciplines that really stick out in terms of, because everybody had to be probably discovering this at the same time as, for example, the Pandaren race was really getting fleshed out at the same time. The expansion was being built. Like it just seems like such a wild thing to be doing on top of not a lot of previously existing lore. Does anything jump out at you, like working with effects
Yeah.
artists or?
Oh yeah. I mean, the thing is like when you build something like a class, you basically buddy up with people all around different teams, right?
Right.
Like the spell effect artist was a friend of ours, Terry Denman, who did a lot of the spell effects for the monk. And so it's interesting when you're working on a game like WoW, you just get, or any kind of game, you really get limited production budget for something, right? Like you only get so many spell effects for the monk or for a class or whatever it is. And so the producers told me how much budget I would get, and I made very sure that I did not task something for a spell that could get cut, because if it gets cut, there goes is your spell effects budget, right? And so I was just basically, yeah, do your other tasks first, like just like save mine for last, because I didn't want to because you're constantly iterating, and there's a lot of monk spells I made that I cut that I never added, and luckily most of the spells that I eventually put into the game for the monk went live. There was one that we sort of cut later on because it was kind of not that great, which was Spinning Fire Blossom. And that was one of my favorite spell effects that Terry did. Yeah, so there was that with the spell effects, and then also, our buddy Chris Kowalski for the sounds. Chris did all the sounds for the monk. At the time, I was really playing a lot of Dota 2, and the Brewmaster in that game, when they're walking around, they have like this kind of sloshing sound
Mm-hmm.
of like water, like liquid in the back in their back, right? And so I really kind of like wanted something like that. Like every time they're moving around, they just have this ambient, just sounds like their brews are swishing around, you know? I don't think we ever got that, but what we did get is like anytime you gained a stack of one of the brews on the different specs, because I did this passive for each of the specs where when they spent chi, they would gain a stack of a different kind of brew. Like there is manatee for the Mistweaver, and then there was Tiger Eye brew, I think, for the Windwalker and stuff like that. So whenever you got a stack, Chris did like a sound of like tea brewing sort of thing, and I like love that because you could kind of zone out and not look at your UI and just kind of listen for the sound cue for the stacks. And I just thought that was so elegant, right? And yeah, me and Chris basically became friends because of I was just texting him today actually. It's just and became friends working on the monk together because Blizzard has this, they tried around with this kind of production methodology of having pod groups, where it's just like you bring people cross discipline to work on something together. And essentially, there was always sort of pod groups because people work that way. But, there was a monk pod group, right? And it was kind of the spell effects, sound, me, an animator. There's a really great animator who also helped out. on the monk. And it was funny with the animations because the Blizzard animators are so great. They were just making so many. Got really into it because the monk is a martial artist, and they were researching all these like stances and moves and stuff like that, and they were so great. But the thing is, a lot of the animations were like really long, like 2 to 3 seconds, and they had to be like 1.5 or lower, just because WoW has a GCD and just and so I was like, oh yeah, I'm like, this is amazing, but we need to like trim it down. And I just felt so bad because the animations were so cool, right? Like Steve Aguilar, that's who the animator was at the time. Gosh, who else do you collaborate with? Craig Amai, he was doing the starting zone for the monk. Well, it was for the monk, but it was also for all Pandarans. And so basically, whenever we did playtests, everybody was playtesting the monk in the starting zone. Oh, another big thing with the monk too was, the spell that everybody loved. I wanted like something iconic for the monk that no other class had. And, I'm a huge fan of Zelda. And one of the things in Zelda is you could kind of roll around, right? Like if you ever see people do speed runs, they fucking roll all over the place. And I was like, oh, how about a roll like, and after I added that in, like that was like everyone's favorite spell for a while. I remember at the playtest at BlizzCon, I just was looking at all the computers, and if you look at them, everybody's just rolling around that starter zone. I was like, wow.
It is a game
hilarious.
changer. Yeah, the mobility on the monk. I mained a monk in Legion, and I started as Windwalker and then moved to Brewmaster after that. And like the insane mobility was like just a selling point for me immediately. And another thing that I kind of want to ask you about that I found is especially the Windwalker rotation. They have their mastery or their passive, and then they also had a talent called hit combo that they're supposed to be alternating attacks. You're not spamming the same thing over and over again. I'm not even sure that there's a question in here, unless the question is like, did you really plan this, or when did the idea come to you? But just the rhythm of playing a monk and having to alternate your abilities in that way to feel like you really are doing a combo, and you feel like you really are doing this sort of martial arts drills, like all of the Pandaren practicing and sparring when you do the quests in Pandaria. Like, how did that come about? Because it just felt like one of the best kind of harmonies between rotation, what the class is supposed to be about, muscle memory. Like, it made playing a Windwalker feel like just very satisfying as a kind of tap dance on the keys.
Yeah, good question. It's funny because you just brought back some memories here, and one was Jeff Goodman was a designer on the WoW team even at that time, and he later went to Overwatch, and he designed basically most of the heroes in Overwatch. And he kept, one of his things with me that he was trying to suggest to me was, and I really tried this because I love the spirit of the idea, which was a lot of combos, like basically, jab, jab, rising sun kick does something. Like trying to like Street Fighter-ish shit. And I prototyped that, but it was too, it was a little too like forced. I love the idea of that. And so at the time, I just, I didn't go through with it, right? Another thing we tried was there's a concept of light and dark chi. And then there's, speaking of harmony, there was something like called harmony, where if you're in the middle of light and dark chi, it would give you some bonus or something like that. It was a little too gamey. It was, again, a little too much like you have to look at this UI, and makes, it removes a lot of player choice from the player. And so tried those two things, didn't really work. Another thing was the directors were like, do we need auto attack? How about the monk has no auto attack, right? And this is around a time where the Star Wars MMO came out, and they didn't have auto attack. They had what they call cinematic combat, which was faked auto attack. So there was no auto attack, but it just showed like the two dudes were like had lightsabers hitting each other or whatever. I tried that too, but it felt horrible because you would hit a button and then just sit there and hit a button. It just did not feel monk at all, right? So tried that, didn't work. So yeah, we tried a lot of those things. I think the hit combo thing didn't come into play until probably expansion later or something like that. And I didn't design that one. That was somebody else on the team. May have been Chad. May have been. Don't remember who did that one. But I love that mastery. All the early masteries, a lot of people really didn't like. So
Did
the
the
mystery.
black? I was just curious with the
Go
did
ahead.
the auto attack thing go live? Do monks not auto attack still?
No, they do.
No, they do auto attack. The no auto attack thing didn't work out. It's just too challenging to do in WoW because it would be fine if every class didn't have auto attack, but if one class doesn't have auto attack and they're melee, it just means you have to roll like 30 to 50% of the damage into the main attacks, and they basically just destroy players in PvP, and it has a lot of different problems. I like the spirit of the idea. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just. How do we just open the floor up? I've never done it myself. Like, if anybody wants to come up and start asking monk questions, go for it. Just raise your hand.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk all day about the monk.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, the hardest thing with the monk, right, was just the Mistweaver, and I just kind of married two healers that I really liked into one, which was the Resto Druid and the Resto Shaman. And so, yeah, so they have like hots, and then they also had like single target heals, and Soothing Mist was kind of like a channel that I was trying to do that was new. And
Mop is also the expansion where famously, afterwards they had to start pruning abilities because ability creep had just gotten kind of out of control and everyone felt like they could do everything. I'm actually really wondering now in retrospect if like the introduction of roll on the monk upping the mobility game to that level played any kind of part in escalating mobility amongst all the other classes, because I can imagine if you were stingy with that and monks could roll everywhere, you could feel a bit left out if you weren't, I don't know if that kind of precipitated any further changes or if that was like
the
really
question is
influential.
like,
yeah,
the mobility,
adding
the
ability to the monk. Yeah.
It did. I mean, certainly there is like, if you could flying serpent kick twice in a row, they became like god tier. Warsong Gulch flag carriers, right?
Yeah.
And so we had to like tone it down in beta. Yeah, and then I mean, of course, then afterwards, like the Demon Hunter kind of also had high mobilities too. So it kind of
Right, from that point
almost,
on,
I think, pretty much usurped the monk.
When you first started out, in addition to just a task in front of you having to stick to a theme, did you feel like there were any specific gaps in kind of like fantasy representation within WoW that you wanted to fill and like you kind of forced the monk to be that? Or did you just take the concept of the monk and think, I guess from like the concept backwards or from sort of like the need and then made the monk do that?
Yeah, I mean, I basically just thought of a bunch of cool fantasies that I liked. And then I kind of thought about a cool player experience for the player to have, and then kind of built around that. One was for the Mistweaver at the time was I really thought it'd be cool if you could melee heal. So if you could like DPS to heal as the Mistweaver. Certainly that was like something that was active for a while, but it had some balance problems, and eventually they kind of got rid of it. But that was always a cool fantasy that I wanted to realize there.
Mm-hmm. Candace had to.
Mistweaving's back. Nice.
What's up?
Yeah, someone said in chat, Mistweaving's back. So yeah,
I heard that. Yeah, I was really
one.
pissed to have missed out on it in the first iteration. But yeah, it's really interesting how monks have evolved over the expansions. Did they put you in charge of all the reworks and all the tweaks kind of going forward? Is it like you create a class and then you're sort of like the North Star for what that class should be for a little bit going forward? Because you were still at the company for another, 8, 10, 9 years after creating the monk. Did they always kind of go back to you for advice on things, or it does not work that way?
I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, of course, I was at the company a number of years after that.
Yeah.
Sort of. They would ask me like, what do you think about, if we would change this or that? And in the beginning, I had more impact, but later on, I just didn't want to be like the guy they have to like get permission for. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, well, do whatever you feel is right. Right. I think the monk is actually, it's stayed pretty close to the original vision through the years. In some ways, it's gotten better, I think. you mentioned, hit combo, I think is way better. All the masteries are way better than the first versions of them. And you're never going to get like a home run in the beginning. You know, so many of the spells you'll make or gameplay is just not going to work out. But a lot of the spells and gameplay, I think, persevered. So I was pretty happy with it.
Can you think of like a moment that was the hardest thing to sort of push through for what you wanted to do with the monk that kind of managed to make it all the way through? Like, was there one particularly pitched battle of something that you just sort of fought for to get realized the way you liked it, or?
There was so much tech I got on the monk that really upset a lot of the gameplay engineers. Well, not really upset, but you know, it's anytime you're getting new tech, like something that the engine, something that the editor doesn't support, you know, they get angsty. They're like, dude, like this engine could do so much. Why do you need more stuff? And there was things that I wanted, which was like transcendence, where you can create a copy of yourself and transfer between it.
Oh, right.
That was one. Another was where you could transfer to your Hearth. It was like essentially a free Hearthstone, or like you go to the closest monastery or the closest graveyard. I forget what that was called, but that was one that I hacked in, and then someone came to me and like, "Hey, you can't do that," and then they had to build tech for that. Roll was actually challenging too because to build, because the engine didn't really support like rapid movement like that. You know,
right.
if
I would
that was a
figure
game
like
that's
the
like
disconnects or something, right? Like with the demon hunter
yeah,
flying
yeah.
around.
It all has to do with networking and syncing clients together. World of Warcraft has some of the best gameplay engineers in the world. And so they were able to make all these things work. And it's so hard to make a networked game that has multiple 20, 40 people in an area and for it to sync between clients and be performant, you know? And so I mean some of those were some of the challenges, yeah.
Pastor Dave, have you got a question for Chris?
Yeah, I mean, when Mist came out, probably 3/4 of the WoW players at the time definitely gave the monk a try. Found it really interesting. I ended up not sticking with it because I only have so much time to play, and you can't play every class, or at least I can't play every class. But one of the things that I always remembered about the monk experience was at a certain point you gained an ability to, and I think you might have referenced it, but teleport to I think it was the mountaintop, and there was a daily quest you could do there that would grant like I think a 1 hour XP buff.
Oh, right.
Because monks started at level 1 instead of at a higher level like Death Knights or other classes that came later on. Just kind of curious where the idea for that came from, how you feel it ended up playing out for the game. I don't think it's still in.
Where did that come from? I can't remember. I mean, the kind of you touched on really why it was made, which is essentially to catch people up when they're level 1. Because of course, Death Knights start at a later level, and we wanted monks to start at level 1. I can't remember why. I think because they wanted the starter zone to be another possible zone for every class. I can't remember why, but
Well,
that's
partly
kind of where
too
it
because
came from.
the pandas started out like as a Pandaren, you could play multiple different classes. And so probably to
Yeah.
start the monk farther ahead than other classes would have been kind of weird too.
Yeah, and I think kind of the post-mortem with the Death Knight, because the Death Knight was the last new class that was added, was just that the Death Knight was just too OP, and too, you know, it started at a higher level and it was out the gate, it was so strong. And so there's so much pressure to not do the same thing with a monk, you know, and so almost, you know, I kind of think looking back, everybody had this microscope on the monk to make sure it wasn't broken, and so it kept getting nerfed over and over again. And I think in the end, it's probably better for a new class to get released and be a little too good than for it to be weak, right? Because it's such a hard sell to add a new class to a game and get people to switch their mains and all of that. And so people are going to invest a lot of time to learn a new class, to switch their main, etc. It's probably better for it to go out the gate a little more powerful than weak, right? But yeah, to answer your question, I can't remember whose idea that was. We always had this idea where we wanted to have a home base for the monks, similar to the Death Knight, and so we just wanted to add some stuff there that Serenities, to add some stuff there that could be cool, right?
Yeah,
So
I remember there
think,
was a couple of class quests that took place up there, and like I say, I didn't stick with it all the way through to max level. I'm not even sure why. I think it was just a matter of I wanted to get back to my paladin, which I've always played from the very beginning. So, and at the time,
Yeah.
I just didn't have time for more than one class. So I've kind of kept tabs on. I haven't played WoW in a little while, retail at least. But the monk, I think, is like one of the top DPS options right now. Even though they're maybe not the most popular class, they still seem to have pretty good damage. So they still have seems like a pretty strong niche in the game.
Yeah, yeah. I think one thing we kind of learned about like from the monk and some of the other classes that just because a class doesn't have isn't like the most popular one or everyone plays it sort of thing is fine because they're all kind of like built for a certain type of person who resonates with that fantasy, resonates with that play style. Not everybody's going to have the same kind of fantasy or play style, but it's good to have diversity there because there's players who really like to play a destruction warlock, but there's not a lot of them. But the ones who do play it might really like it, right?
Hmm.
And so,
Yeah, and I will say just before I head out and let somebody else have a chance that while I didn't stick with it, I did feel when I played it that it was different from any other class I had played in WoW before. So I think you succeeded on that front for sure.
yeah, I kind of think that was always the thing in the back of my head was like, am I doing anything interesting or new here, right? And so I was always trying to do new things that players hadn't seen before. I'm pretty happy with how things turned out, but when the designer who was doing the Demon Hunter was designing it, he was really stressed out that he couldn't, he's struggling to come up with new things that haven't been done before. And my post-mortem with the monk was like, don't worry about it, just do things that are cool fantasy spells that are just like interesting or just like aesthetically fit the fantasy, right? Players care more about the fantasy than they do about like crazy wacky gameplay sort of
Yeah,
mechanics.
give them I-beam and everything else will fall into place, right?
Right, yeah. And so that's the kind of lesson that I learned with class design at the end was just that so much of it is just fantasy. Players just really want to feel like a mage, feel like a demon hunter, feel like a monk. And that should be the priority, not trying to like design mechanics they have never seen before in any other game.
Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
We're a little bit over, but someone might think up a question while I'm going to continue to just pepper you with short monk questions. I know that you also were responsible for like the monk legendary design in Shadowlands. Is one of the last things before you got out of there. What was it like to kind of go back and get to revisit like some of the favorites throughout the history of monkdom? Were you like stoked to go back and kind of get to sort of touch your original creation there again? And what was that process like?
Yeah, I mean that was fun. I enjoy doing the legendaries for the monk and for some of the others in Shadowlands. The one thing I realized was there wasn't a lot of really great ones in the past, right? And the monk doesn't really have as many as say like the priest or the warrior does, just because.
They were later with set bonuses and such.
Yeah. They're just later with set bonuses, so there was not a lot to like pull from, and so I had to create like some new ones there, and those are fun. I mean, I haven't really checked to see if they still exist or if they're changed or anything, but yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was fun to revisit.
What's the design process for choosing what abilities kind of might go on there? Like, what kind of research do you do or consultation do you do? I mean, what ends up getting like winnowed down into the ones we see?
Yeah, I mean, my methodology, and this is always my methodology with class design, is I just ask people who love the class, who play it, and to what set bonuses they enjoyed, which ones did they remember. I think I remember I asked some of the influencers what they liked. I looked through the forums looking to see what were popular ones. And then, of course, also my own assessment of what I thought was, because sometimes the forums, the players will really like a set bonus, but they don't like it for the gameplay. They like it because it was, and so I mean, it's easy to make something powerful. But so I tried to use the ones that really would change gameplay, that would that would feel different, that you could say, oh, I want this one for this fight, sort of thing. So, anyways, my methodology just always just kind of go to the community, go to the forums, go to pull the room, pull other designers, pull other people on the team, who play Monk. Internally on the team, I created a Monks Slack channel where I basically just got all the monks, the whole company wide, and just put them in there and let them suggest things or whatever.
The last thing I'll say about that, and then we'll get to WoWfell, is that I think that is significant because as you, the person who created the class, like it would have been, you could have made the argument that you had some base idea of what the direction of some of these legendaries should have been. Like you could have claimed some sort of ownership to the lineage of the monk in some way. And so I think it's super cool that you decided to, go outside, talk to everybody who, the class that you created now belonged to, in a way, because it had grown and changed so much, and they were attached to it, and then brought their ideas back instead of kind of like reinserting yourself there.
Yeah, I mean, an important design principle to have, especially when designer matures and gets, in their career, is realizes that a good designer doesn't have to be the one who comes up with every idea, but you have to be the curator of ideas. So you need to go out and find them. Most of your ideas are not going to be ones that you thought of. Design is mostly an execution, not really just idea generation. And so, just use like all the other resources that you have, like talk with other people, read things. So
it's awesome. WoWfell, what brings you up to the stage?
Yeah, what's up? Yeah. I just want to ask a question because a lot of people have been talking about faction merging and stuff, and I was just wondering to Chris, how do you think that would affect Wormwood in the future, or what would be the best way to design Wormwood around having factions merged to a certain extent?
Interesting. So if Horde and Alliance weren't auto anti each other, and that they had cross faction sort of thing, probably one way to do it is like maybe the factions are player factions, maybe they're guilds, maybe they're sort of like Alder Scryer, and maybe people can kind of the factions aren't not all orcs. Orcs can be an alliance or horde, but there's still an alliance and horde, but you could kind of choose either one or something. Essentially, war mode or world PvP is just there's no real reason why the faction has to be like, say, these certain races or whatnot, but certainly that's the fantasy of Warcraft, and that's what's always been, and that's why it's like that. But if the question is like, how would war mode work if there wasn't like a binary Horde Alliance faction on Horde, on the red versus blue sort of thing, or with a certain subsets of races, that's how I think the only way that you could really do it, right?
I mean, kind of to where we're headed in the future, not if the game didn't have factions to begin with. So, I'm trying to ask.
Sorry, is it still with the question of that there weren't factions, or
Oh no, I'm saying for the future, let's say patch 10.0 comes out, and there's gonna be some crossplay between Alliance and Horde. How do you think you could integrate war mode into that sort of system?
I guess it just depends on because the player, even if the player could say switch factions or something whenever they want, there has to be some semblance of, okay, they're this faction now, right? Let's say the designers, one idea I thought of, I suggested at one point, and I'm not saying do this, and this has problems, but you could have an alter ego, right? If you ever used the orb of deception, humans turn into undead or whatever, right? Let's say you have an alter ego on the other faction, and so if you're human, you have an alter ego of undead, right? And so that would allow you to switch between Alliance and Horde whenever you want to. Potentially what you could do is maybe you could just switch that whenever you want to, and then that's one way that you can go into war mode, and it matches based on whatever alter ego you are. like whether you're Horde or Alliance at that given time. Yeah, I mean, Horde war mode balance is a challenge just because factions are a challenge just because in today's world players want to be on the same faction as everybody else. They want to have the maximum amount of players that they could possibly group with and play with.
Yeah.
Back when WoW first came out, there wasn't Discord. There wasn't really, people weren't really connected outside of the MMO. You connected in the MMO. Today, people connect outside the MMO, right? They connect on Discord or whatever it is. Yeah, I think factions like having Horde and Alliance in the modern game is a challenge just because of that. And so I'm not sure what the real solution to it is. It's a hard problem just because Horde and Alliance has such identity with the game.
Thanks for the replies. Awesome
Yeah.
podcast. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
It would be interesting, if there weren't any factions and yet the war mode toggle still worked. Opting into it versus opting out of it would put you into sort of like a free for all battle royale kind of state if like anybody could attack basically anybody else. So I wonder how the sort of live segmentation of group versus group would work in something like that, even just constrained to a sort of zone. Could there be like interfaces and systems for forming up official temporary alliances? Could there be like, various bounties and rewards incentivizing people to join one side or another in the spirit of kind of keeping war mode equal, which is one of the main things I know that you said you had to design around, with sharding and everything like that. It'll be, I doubt they'll ever merge the factions. That's like the extreme breaking case of glass, but that will be a real thorny one to untangle if they do, for sure. Maybe it'll just be it's all PvE and they won't figure it out. We've got one more hand up here from Bebs. Let me grab him. Paging Bebs to the stage.
Yeah, if ever anyone's wondering where Candace is, her power went out.
Oh, fuck. That's California living for you.
That's what happens where everyone uses their AC at once. It was a hot one today. So.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was like over 100.
Oh my gosh. That's like, we're in peak summer, fall crispness up here. I'm getting to wear long sleeve stuff outside again. It feels glorious. So
I'm so jelly.
Yeah, if you want some I know game developers love long sleeve clothing, but they also love shorts. So
hoodie weather, right?
Yeah, hoodies and shorts. That's what we want. All right, now we got Bebs up here.
I can always peg the game developer. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's the game developer fashion. What's going on, Bebs?
Hey, how are you guys?
Great.
Good.
All right. So my question was about Ashran and what was like cut, like what didn't make it on there that you would have liked to see. What's your favorite zone and why, like within Ashran, and what is your least favorite and why?
Interesting.
God, if you have like a least favorite, if there's like a zone or like a part of it that you didn't like how it ended up, or if something was like changed in a way that you kind of didn't agree with. But
I mean, with Ashran, there was really, kind of a debate on the team what it should be. One side of the developers was like, it should be like a world, like a zone in WoW, not a battleground, right? Like almost like a world PvP zone. Kind of like what Alterac Valley was originally supposed to be. Or Alterac Valley was not supposed to be a battleground. It was supposed to be kind of like a zone, like a world PvP zone. And that's why it's so huge, right? It has quests and all these other things. And so that's kind of what the original idea was. But then there's also other people who are like, that won't work. I don't understand what a world PvP zone is. I don't understand what you're doing in that. It should be more of like a battleground, right? It should have objectives. It should have things that players know that they have to do, things like that. And that's kind of, so if you kind of look at the zone, it kind of is like both of those things. It has the central lane, which is kind of like this push-pull battlegroundy thing. It has events. It has, you can kill the mage tower or the mage at the top of the tower and get points and things like that. So it has objectives in there. It has things on the map you could do. But it also has like these zony sort of things, like the artifact fragments. You can kill people and loot that, and so that was kind of encouraging players to just kind of roam around and gank each other, in the broader zone, right? And just kind of solo do things. And so that's kind of like why I feel like it didn't really turn out exactly how I imagined, is just because it was trying to do two things and never really decided which one it wanted to be. I think my view, what I would like is if the zone was bigger. I would have liked the zone to be probably like 20-30% bigger than it is. It's just too small if it's trying to be kind of like Alterac Valley. But it's kind of stayed that it was the size it was because really some of the directors were like, no, I think it should be Alterac Valley was too big. It should just be this, smaller or whatever it is. What things got cut in it didn't go live. Really, like, I mean, there was so much shit in all Ashran. There's like, I just went crazy with that.
I could imagine.
I was trying to add so much stuff in there. There's like, there's the frostworm that you summon that flies through. At the time, I was mostly like a class designer on the team. I was mostly doing spells and gameplay and systems, that sort of thing. And so I never really did sort of content to that degree. And so I was learning how to do so many different things, like building creatures and spawning a dragon and having it fly through the lane and freeze people. That was something I was like, oh wow, look what I did. So it was just like a mishmash of just a bunch of experiments. One of the experiments I did in the zone was faction tap. So Horde and Alliance could, or basically, if an Alliance player attacked the mob, every other Alliance player would get loot from it as well. Previously, before then, if Alliance player got a tap, other Alliance players couldn't get it unless they went into the party. I was like, let's try faction tap here. So I kind of thought faction tap should be in a broader game. And so after it went live in Ashran, a lot of people on the team liked that, and they kind of put it into the broader game. Yeah, and so I mean, I can't think of anything I put in there that got cut. I mean, there had to have been some stuff, but I just basically put so much shit into there. If anything, it had too many things, right?
Right. There was a lot of content within the zone. Like someone posted a guide on the Discord, and I was like shocked by like the amount of things that are within that zone. It's kind of amazing. What about your like favorite part of it? What's your favorite part within it? Do you have one, do you think, or?
I think one of my favorite parts was the two bases, essentially. And I like the little bosses at the end, Volrath and Tremblade. They're named after two level designers that worked on the zone, Julian Tremblay and Colin Volrath. And I liked also I added this, I like the little spells that I added for each class. And the Paladin one was you send somebody to jail. I just thought that was hilarious. And so I kitted out the little jails in each of the two bases. And so that's kind of one of my favorite parts of the zone is the little jails. So yeah, maybe that.
Send him to hell.
Send him to hell, yeah.
Yeah. Or jail in this case, yeah. Damn, I still have never played a single game of Ashran. Ever.
Really? What?
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure.
Well, with Diana, how I played some.
No, I didn't really play WAD when it was a thing, and it was.
No, but it was in BFA.
Wasn't it still in Legion, and then didn't they retire it in BFA, and now they've brought it back? Maybe I'm crazy. I thought it was out, and it was like being worked on for a while.
Ashran was added as an epic BG in BFA. I thought. I can't remember which patch it was, but it was added at the.
I missed it. If inshallah, if we ever go back to WoW someday, we can all queue together, and I can experience it.
Good. It was really funny with Ashran because it had a love-hate relationship. There's some people who just loved it, and there's a lot of like hardcore players who just hated it. Part of the reasons why a lot of players didn't like it is because it was added to kind of the core progression loop.
Yeah, like I saw that. Like you
And
had,
you had to
like,
do it.
the
Yeah,
conquest. Yeah, was like a certain amount.
Yeah.
X amount was required from Ashran. Otherwise, you couldn't get that full
Yeah.
amount for the week.
Yeah, and I didn't want to do that. The reward designers really wanted to do that. And I always hate forcing some players to do content that they don't like. And, a lot of arena players do not like to do epic battlegrounds, right?
Right. Right.
Ashran was made for a certain type of player. So I have regrets with that. But what was hilarious is when we were removing Ashran, we got so much hate mail about that. Like sent to a lot of that hate mail was sent to Mike Morheim for some reason. And so Morheim sent to me forwarded one of the emails. He's like, yeah, someone's really upset about something. And I was reading it, and it was someone who was really upset for Ashran being removed. And the person who wrote it was, gosh, I think like a 66-year-old grandmother who that's the only thing she loved in WoW was Ashran.
Oh man.
And I just felt so bad about that. She's like, I met up so many friends that we play every week, and she was sending me like all her screenshots where she took group pictures with, and I just felt so horrible about that. Right. And so that's the problem if you ever remove any content from the game, is that no matter how unpopular it is, there's somebody who loves it. Right. So
Right.
The human cost of iterating on live games.
Yeah.
We don't think about it.
Yeah.
That sucks. It ended up just like a nice cozy space for her.
I appreciate you guys taking my
so,
questions. And
Well, of course.
I hope you have a good night.
Thanks,
no problem.
Babs.
Good question.
Take care.
Yep. On that note, why don't we wrap her up? I'm getting hungry, like I mentioned. I'm
Me
always
too.
hungry
I'm
now.
starving. And
Great.
I just got a haircut, and all these little hairs are killing me. So.
Oh my god, that's the fucking worst. Yeah, you gotta get them.
Yeah.
Like no matter what they do, there are always little hairs. You got to go shower. Like
do I
now.
eat or take a shower? I don't know. It's just
No, shower, man. Shower.
Yeah.
They could fall in your food or something. Gross.
Right.
All right, everyone.
All right, cool. You're
for
up next. I can't wait to hear your little story.
Yeah, literally hear it. Yeah, I think I'll probably go through one of the HOTS heroes I did, because that's some very
you gotta like
work
play
of
some
mine.
sounds. We're on a
No,
podcast.
that's what I mean by literally. I'll have to rig up some routing and stuff, and I'll kind of just walk through, I guess, where I started and my thought process behind a few particular sounds. Because I've spent a lot of time listening to you all discuss the way that you approach game design problems and the lens that you kind of use, and it might be interesting for some people to think about. Or see how sound designers think. Not that there's not a lot of content about that now, but it's my turn to do it. So, yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that next week, and see you all next Wednesday.
All right, later, gamers.